Thanks, Jen. Thanks for inviting me up here. I actually spent the morning at Van Wert talking to about 30 or 40 corn soybean producers. So I'm kind of going to do a 180 now, and we're going to take it to the next level. So I got to make sure I got my hat on straight here for the full day of who I'm talking with. But I appreciate the invite up here. As Jen said, we met at the Mother Earth News Fair. It was the first time I'd been invited to speak there. Lynette and I have attended it, I think, every year since it's been in Kansas. I thought it was really interesting this year because much of my talk is going to be about soil health, food health, community health, human health. There was 3 speakers that I've heard in the history of the Mother Earth News Fair talk about those things. All 3 of them were no-till farmers, not organic. It's really been a little disappointing to me as we go more towards the organic world. We don't hear some of those things we were expecting to hear out of the organic community. But enough of the soapbox, it's too early for that. So, growing healthy communities is what it's all about on our operation. A couple years ago, I guess it's just a little bit of background. In 2000, I was farming 3,200 acres of corn and soybean. Full conventional, Roundup, heavy herbicide, heavy insecticide, the works. Today, we are down to about 800 acres, and we're going to get smaller yet. We developed this label a couple of years ago. We do a lot of direct marketing of our products now. This is how we're going in our future. Our mission is to growing nutrient-dense food without hindering the next generation's ability to do so. Our goal, rejuvenating soil, growing healthy nutrient-dense food, managing water effectively, attracting abundant wildlife, growing resilience for future generations. That's a big screen, isn't it? Why is soil health important? Well, for one, if you have healthy soil, you have clean, healthy water. This picture is actually taken at a friend of mine. His name's Ted Alexander. He has a ranch in southern Kansas. This is what NRCS calls an intermittent stream, which means it runs with heavy rainfall and then dries up. This stream has been full. In fact, he has a picture from 2012 in the middle of the drought that looks just like this. When this stream gets 1 mile off his property, it goes dry. But his fellow ranchers and neighbors think he gets more rain. He doesn't get more rain. He's changed the management on his operation with a focus on soil, and this is what he can do. Has there been any discussion in Iowa about water in the last couple of years? Why do you think Des Moines would care if this is what their water looked like coming into their water treatment plant? These are the things we can do when we put our emphasis on soil health. Removing nitrates, don't have to tell you guys this, costs taxpayers nearly $5 billion a year. Why is soil health important? Clean air. I spoke at the State Kansas Conservation District Conference several years ago. The Secretary of Ag for the state of Kansas spoke just before me, and he said that the Dust Bowl was an ugly reminder of our past and it never would be repeated again because we had too much knowledge, we were too smart. It would never happen again. This photo was taken less than 12 months later. It can happen again, it will happen again, it is happening again in western Kansas in those areas of semi-arid environment. What have we learned from the 30s? Not much. We're having dust storms so bad in western Kansas and Nebraska, they're picking them up on satellite. Bigger picture, we can stabilize climate. There's a new study out that higher organic matter of soil brings more rainfall. And it's going to bring more steady rainfall, not these storms that we've been seeing the last 10 years. If you want to look the article up, is in Beef Producer Magazine, written by my friend Alan Newport from Oklahoma. How can soil health stabilize governments? Well, I think by the end of my presentation you'll understand this, but if you've improved your soil to where you're not blowing, you have higher infiltration rates, you're growing more crops on less water, you're going to see less flash flooding, you're going to see less demand on crop insurance and things like this. We truly can stabilize governments. And we'll get into this a little bit later. There's a little bit of a discussion going on right now about Obamacare and Trump care. I can tell you, if you fix the soil, that discussion will go away because it won't matter. because health issues won't become the concern that they are today. We'll get into that a little bit as we go through. In 2015, RMA payout for crop insurance was $14 billion. Crop insurance was designed to protect farmers from years like 1936. That's what insurance is for, to protect you from a disaster. 2012 was the largest payout in RMA history until 2013, 2014, 2015. In really good years, we have exceeded the payout every year. This is not what crop insurance was designed for. Over the past 15 years, more than $96 billion of your money has gone to agriculture subsidies that have been handed out to industrial farmers. And another thing, when I get into the organic world, I'm really saddened to hear organic farmers saying, we need subsidies, we need insurance. Bull. You don't want into those hoops. You don't want the paperwork. We need to take these away and make it a level playing field. We don't need to bring subsidies into the organic world. And to me, the most important one, nutrient-dense food. Americans have the lowest health rating in the developed world thanks to this industrial processed diet and the fact that we have the most expensive healthcare system in the world, even though it ranks 37th in terms of quality. So why is soil health important? You want to fix healthcare, fix the soil. This is just a very disturbing map to me. This is soil degradation on scale of the planet. I mean, pretty obvious these are extremely old soils in this region. These are very, very new soils in terms of geology. What have we learned? If you read David Montgomery's book, every civilization on the history of the planet that has collapsed because of soil degradation. Every single one. We are degrading our soil faster than any civilization in the history of the planet. We've learned nothing from our ancestors. And whether you believe in religion or evolution, man started right here. Anybody see a garden there anywhere? It was a garden thousands of years ago. It's a desert today because of our agriculture practices. We made that desert, and these deserts are growing. Under a business as usual scenario, degraded soil will mean that we will produce 30% less food over the next 20 to 50 years. And a rough calculation of current rates of soil degradation suggests we have about 60 years of topsoil left. That's not much, guys. That's not much. And it's going to happen on our kids, or on my kids' watch, on you young people's watch. So I know you guys are really smart. Can anybody grow food on a rock? And I know there's this idea of growing it in water, and that's not much better as far as I'm concerned. You cannot get the nutrient density into a plant without soil. So what will you leave to the next generation? And I'd put a picture of my kids up here, but who gives a crap about my kids, right? You guys love your kids. And who hasn't pictured themselves when they look at this poster? Them and their brother or sister. So what will you leave to the next generation? So in my area and in Iowa as well, this is how it started as settlers degraded their soil on the East Coast and they moved west to find richer soil. The native tallgrass prairie was broken to the plow. And as the Indians were leaving, they told the white man, the black clouds will follow. Guess what? They were right. The black clouds followed. And today they're still here. This is from your area, the Corn Belt. This is what organic or soil carbon has done since we started plowing the prairie in the late 18 and early 1900s. You see, we bottomed out there late after the Dust Bowl, and then as we come into reduced tillage and minimum tillage and no-till, we've not made much improvement. In Kansas, the carbon level in the soil is actually high ones, low twos. That's where my farm was in the late 90s. Today, we are from about 4% to 7%. So what is soil carbon worth? What does soil health mean? What does increased organic matter? What does it mean for you in dollars and cents? Because at the end of the day, we can talk about the environment, that's all well and good, but we still have to make money as farmers, right? Well, this photo was taken in 2012. For you students, it may not mean much. For anybody that's a farmer, 2012 was the worst year we'd had since 1936. Second hottest, driest year on record. This is a field that was planted to oats and peas. We ended up having to graze it off when the drought hit. As soon as we were done grazing it, we planted this warm season cover crop cocktail of sedans and cowpeas and all kinds of things for more forage because we knew our cow herd was going to be in trouble with the drought. This picture is taken in October. This whole field was planted to this mix. Why is it only right here? Where is it at over here? Any ideas? What happened to the soil? 2 years before this photo was taken, I'd put one round bale of hay out and fed to my cows. They ate the whole bale, or 90+% of it, but the little bit of hay that was left and the congregation of the cattle with manure and urine dumps. I wish I'd have pulled a soil sample here, but I'm guessing the organic matter there is at least double from what it is in the rest of the field. We can get our organic matter to this level, farm-wide, statewide, nationwide. And when we do, how reliant are we going to be on crop insurance? How drought resilient are we if we can do this to our soil? How much crop insurance would I have needed in 2012 of your money if my whole farm was like this? So in the early 2000s, I finally got my whack upside the head after I found out my no-till wasn't the answer, as I was told it was the answer to everything. It wasn't about no-till. No-till is just a tool like organic is. It's about the carbon, stupid. It's about getting carbon into the soil, growing soil, getting whole soil healthy. And from 2002 to today, our farm has been on a completely different journey. And irresponsibility. No single raindrop wants to believe is to blame for the flood. We all think we're doing the best we can do on our farm because we all love the planet, right? Sometimes we can do better. We know now on our farm we can do better. So why is soil health important? And this is the main thing we're going to talk about with you people here today, is growing nutrient-dense food. Cheap food is no bargain when it makes you and your children chronically ill, and nearly 38% of American adults and 17% of children and adolescents are obese, and this alone costs the U.S. healthcare system over $200 billion a year. Again, we talk about stabilizing climates and healthcare, fix the soil. This was scientific research done of nutrient data from 1975 to 1997, found the average calcium levels in 12 fresh vegetables dropped 27%, iron levels 37%, vitamin A 21%, vitamin C levels 30%. 50-year data published in the British Food Journal found that in 20 vegetables, the average calcium content had declined 19%, iron 22, potassium 14, and on. You cattle and sheep growers, it's no different for you. Beef is all about iron, right? Lost 47% of our iron. Milk, cheese, dropped more than 60%. And the list goes on and on and on. You can find this research online. Milk appears to have lost 2% of its calcium, 21% of its magnesium. Is this stuff important? Does our bodies need any of this to ward off obesity, cancer, diabetes, any of those things, autism? This is the problem we're facing today with our degraded soil. Another study concluded that one would have to eat 8 oranges a day to derive the same amount of vitamin A as our grandparents had out of 1. They're finding oranges today with 0 vitamin C. Now, not all of that is because of soil degradation. Part of that is your fault. As consumers, we now demand our grocery store have oranges on the shelves 12 months out of the year. We need to eat seasonal. When we demand an orange on the grocery store shelf when it's out of season, it means somebody had to pick it green, ship it somewhere, and store it before it had time to do all the photosynthesis that it needed to get the nutrient value into that orange. So it's not all the farmer's fault. We all have a role in this, and we all need to get back to eating local and eating seasonal. You young people in here don't recognize this. This was my medicine cabinet when I was a kid. This is what it looked like. This is what my mom's pantry looked like. Today, this is what a medicine cabinet looks like. And this is what a pantry looks like. So again, it goes back to it's not all the farmer's fault. There's a lot of other things at play here. But I can tell you with healthy soil, we aren't going to need this. The answer isn't in the jug for farmers, and it's not in the bottle for consumers. By 2050, antibiotic-resistant infections is going to kill 10 million people worldwide every year. We're being told we need to feed 9 billion people by 2050. There won't be 9 billion people on this planet in 2050. Not at the rate we're going. In 20 years, I have a grandson now. His children, 50-50 chance one of them will be autistic. 50-50. Today, you have a 1 in 2 chance of having cancer. We have no concerns about feeding 9 billion people the way things are going today if we don't fix this first. So it comes down to selections we make as consumers and as farmers. Chicken, anyone? How many people here like to eat organic? Try to eat as healthy as they can. Very good. Which one of these is grown organically? One is conventional, one is organic. Left is organic, left is conventional. Left is conventional, left is organic. The right is conventional. Yeah. These aren't totally free range. They're in tractors that we move daily. So they do have range. Because they aren't very good with predators, they do have some confinement, but they do get moved daily. We are not certified organic. We actually are still using some herbicides. We haven't completely eliminated those yet from our operation. These are organic chickens. Which one do you think is healthier? Which one do you think has more nutrient density in it? I know which one I'd rather eat because I've eaten both, and I know which one also has more flavor. So just because it says it's organic doesn't mean it was done right. It means there may not be any chemicals used in the feed, and that's a good thing. Is this how you want to live if you're a chicken? How healthy is this chicken? And I did it. Yeah, I brought it back. Whew. So again, conventional versus organic. And if this is how your label looks when you buy chicken at the grocery store or wherever you buy it, maybe it's time to find a new farmer. Because this is what I want on my label. Chicken, sunshine, water. If you can't read it, if you can't pronounce it, probably don't need to be eating it. So, and for consumers, you know, I'm really sorry for you guys because it's really confusing because you go to the store and you've got organic, you've got free range, cage free, natural. What all of them mean? Nothing. Unless you can ask that grocer or that farmer, how is it raised? Because cage free means the chicken can do this. Free range chickens are in a barn like I just showed you. There's a door at the end of the barn in an organic chicken barn. Their free-range chickens has a door the size a chicken can get out, and there's a grassed area the size of the stage I'm standing on. The door is opened at 4 weeks once the chickens reach feathered, and by that time they aren't smart enough to know what that door opening means, and they never go outside. But they're allowed, so they're free-range. So if you can't ask the questions from where your food's coming from, you need to find a new supplier for your food, or better yet, grow it yourself. It's not just chicken. And I hate to say both of these pictures were taken on my farm. Thank God the one on the left was a neighbor that I rented some of our pens to after we closed our feedlot. There's research out there that shows that beef start putting on marbling and taste when a calf is about 5 weeks old. Which one of these is under more stress? Which one's going to be a better eating experience for us? Which one's going to be healthier? Which one's going to be happier? So how do we get healthy soil? How do we grow soil? On our farm, it's not just about making soil healthy. We're actually growing soil on our farm. We've grown several inches. I have a friend in Australia that has grown 30 inches of topsoil in 20 years, and I've sat in meetings with him with soil scientists from universities like this and higher up and watched the scientists call him a liar. It's been documented. We can grow soil in years. We can grow a couple inches of soil in a decade. We can do it much, much faster than the scientists told us just 10 years ago we could do. So how do we do it? Well, there's the principles of what we call the principles of soil health. Number one, minimize or eliminate disturbance. Disturbance is either mechanical or chemical, tillage or spraying chemicals or fertilizers on your ground. Those have to be eliminated. And so this is where we come into some of the issues between conventional and organic farming. Because from my vantage point, I don't like either one. Both are systems designed to kill. Both farmers get up every morning and say, what am I going to kill today and how am I going to do it? We need systems designed to grow. And I also can tell you it's extremely difficult to do no-till organic. We've been working on it for several years and it's just almost impossible. But we've got to eliminate all disturbances, not just the chemical. We have to eliminate the mechanical disturbances as well. This is us planting into a cover crop. This is what it looks like behind. And the seed coming up through the dead cover crop. And I did it again. This is drilling into another cover crop. This is a cheap old drill. It's really easy to do. How do you terminate cover crops if you're not going to use chemicals or tillage? That's another very good question. Well, for one thing, there's things like crop rollers. They're a nice tool. Again, they aren't the answer. They have a lot of drawbacks to them as well. But it's another tool we can use where we can eliminate tillage or chemicals to help kill the cover crops so we can plant our next crop. The thing I love about this picture, my neighbor and I went in together and bought this crop roller a few years ago. This is his daughter. His son and daughter are 10 years younger than my son and daughter. I always wondered if I was a bad parent because I never taught my kids how to do tillage. They never learned how to run a plow, never learned how to disc. And I always wondered, man, did I screw something up there? Because they're never going to know how if they need it. Today, I'm really, really proud of that fact that my kids don't know how to do that. How cool would it be if Kevin's kids never learn how to spray? I mean, just in 10 years, the advancements we've made in agriculture, how fast we're getting there. And again, you can do this to any scale you want. Large, small, medium, in between. Here's a picture of a lady I found on the internet, our new favorite tool, the internet. She took a piece of plywood or a piece of a 2x4, bolted some angle iron to it, put some rope on it, and made herself a one-person powered cover crop roller. Number two, keep the ground covered 24/7, 365. Nowhere in nature do you see bare soil or dead soil. It's covered all the time. We have to have cover on the ground to keep weeds from growing. Weeds hate sunlight, they hate mycorrhizal fungi. What we're doing when we're tilling and spraying is we're killing the mycorrhizal fungi, allowing the weeds to grow and outcompete our crops. These are some soybeans I grew in 2012. Again, I told you 2012 was the second hottest, second driest year on record. These were double crop soybeans planted after we planted and harvested winter barley for a cover crop seed company. We grew 75 bushel winter barley, planted soybeans into it. Never rained again until fall. We harvested 17 bushel soybeans, which was the highest yielding soybeans in the county that year, and they were a double crop after another crop. That's not possible in our world. How did we do that with no water? How did they outcompete this volunteer barley crop? Because our organic matter is raised, we have soil life going on with earthworms, mycorrhizal fungi, and instead of having competition, we have synergistic things going on below soil, transferring water and nutrients back and forth. Those are things you do when you quit disturbing your soil, when you start to let the below ground livestock thrive and start feeding your soil instead of killing it. Keep a living root in the soil at all times. Again, mimicking what Mother Nature does. This picture is taken on January 22nd on my farm. It was 17 degrees that day. That's an earthworm, 2 inches from the surface. What is an earthworm doing active on a 17-degree day, 2 inches from the soil surface? Earthworms go dormant in winter. They don't like cold soil, obviously, just like snakes and anything else. So how is he operating on this day? Decomposition from all my microbes. They're all breathing, they're all living things. Our soil is warmer in the winter, cooler in the summer, because it's alive. all the time. The more days we can keep it alive, the more the earthworms are working. And earthworms, like the microbes, they eat, poop, and have sex. Life is good. And the more of that they do, the more soil we grow. Plain and simple. So that January picture wasn't good enough. Well, let's try February with a bunch of snow on the ground. And there are earthworms right at the soil surface. Number 4, integrate livestock. Now, you don't have to have livestock to fix your soil, to grow soil. But this speeds it up a lot, makes it go a lot faster. So integrating livestock is really, really key to speeding the whole process. Now, some of you guys are sitting here with a garden thinking, I don't know if I can grow that much, and my neighbors may not be too happy, but livestock is livestock. It doesn't have to be on 4 hooves. It all works, and the great thing is that the more of these things you can bring in, the better. Because they all do different things, they all have different C/N ratios in their manure, they all graze different things at different times and have different habits. And they all do positive things to the soil in different ways. So the more livestock, more diversity. Same as with your plants, more diversity. And then find ways to turn these things into money. This is a local 2-acre vineyard. Lynette takes her lambs over there once or twice a year, grazes the vineyard. I don't think I have an updated picture because now you do not see this in his vineyard. He has quit mowing, he's quit using fertilizer. Well, you guys think industrial farmers are bad. Buy a bottle of wine and go visit the vineyard it was grown on. You talk about people that like to use chemicals. Oh my God. So this guy's my neighbor, and we had to find a way to get along. So when I started cutting back on my herbicides, I said, okay, I'm doing things like this. I no longer want any of your wine until you fix some of this stuff you're doing, because I watched what he was doing and I no longer wanted his wine. Today he's got cover crops growing in here year round. He's done away with this. He's done away with Roundup. He's done away with fertilizer and all of his chemical. Not only that, Lynette grazes his vineyard a couple times a year and he pays us to graze it. 2 cases of wine. It's a win-win for everybody. He's getting free fertilizer from the sheep. We're getting wine that I now like to drink. I don't buy wine in the liquor store anymore. So again, different livestock doing different things. For us, everything on our farm has multiple purposes. Everything on our farm has to work really hard. Chickens aren't just about laying eggs. This is also our fly control for our cow herd. Our chickens are 3 days behind our cow herd. This is a stock trailer. I think I have another picture of it. We've pulled out the floor, put expanded metal floor. We got nest, roost, water. Got a door, solar powered door that opens up in the morning when the sun comes up, closes at night. Chickens put themselves in or out, and we keep them moved with the 4-wheeler, move the trailer behind the cows. This is kind of what the trailer looks like, only this is our ducks that we got last year. You can see here the little door they're coming out of. We graze pigs. Again, happier, healthier pigs, happier, healthier us, better eating experience. It's a lot of fun. Pigs are kind of our ambassadors. If you've ever been around pigs, they are the socialites of the farm. Pigs love people, they love other animals, they don't like being by themselves. They greet our visitors. They want to be with us all the time. A lot of fun. We changed our management or our grazing. We graze year-round now, and we don't graze like most of the pastures you see that look like this floor. We want to graze as big stuff as we can, feeding the below-ground livestock while we're feeding our above-ground livestock. Again, we graze year-round. We changed our calving to where we now calve in the spring, just like Mother Nature does. We aren't calving in the winter like the rest of our neighbors are, where the calves are dropping out of a nice warm malm onto a 0-degree soil snowbank. Much healthier calves, much healthier moms, and certainly healthier me. We're doing grass-finished beef and lamb now. There's lots of information out there about the advantages of grass-fed meat over grain-finished. The last key of soil health is diversity. Diversity, diversity, diversity. If that's the only thing you take away from me today, diversity. Nowhere in nature do you see a monoculture. Why are we trying to grow corn? Why are we trying to grow soybeans or acorns or Bermuda grass, whatever, pumpkins? If you're growing it in a monoculture, you're going against Mother Nature. She's going to find a way to beat you. That's her job. She hates monocultures. Diversity always wins. This is some cool season cereal we planted into stands, so it's planted into sterile soil. The only thing we added was seed and water. This is what it looked like as a monoculture. This is what it looked like when we added other things into it. Again, diversity always wins. So how much diversity? Well, a little is good, more is better. Once we started finding the benefits of cover crops in the non-cropping seasons, so after we harvested corn or wheat or pumpkins or whatever, and then we would plant a cover crop until the next cash crop was planted. And as we continued to look into all these benefits, it kind of dawned on me, well, if polycultures are better than monocultures, why are we growing corn or pumpkins or soybeans? Why aren't we growing them with our cover crops? So that was the next step for us. We're now working on growing what we call companions or living cover crops or living mulch, whatever, there's all kinds of terms for it, all planted together. The goal here is the sunflower, that is our cash crop, but it's been planted with a multi-species cover crop mix. We have flowers in there to attract not only pollinators but beneficial insects, because there's lots of things that like to decimate sunflowers, so we want to promote all the insects we can. We got mung beans and cowpeas in here for nitrogen. And the best part is, once we harvest off the sunflowers, we've still got something out there we can turn the cows or the sheep or the chickens out on and get even more dollars. We have a drought, we have nothing to harvest with the sunflowers. Just turn the cattle in and graze it off, find a way to turn that into dollars without having to collect crop insurance. This is our garden. Our garden is just about, if you want to use the word ugly, that's fine. That's what I used to call it. Today I think it's beautiful. This is lettuce growing in some of our cover crops. Yes, it does take a little longer to harvest and clean, but that clover doesn't taste too bad. I'm a little lazy. It's all greens, right? This is some peas we've got growing. So again, this works to all scale, all crops. There's no reason we can't be doing it. This is Three Sisters. We've now gone, we quit planting GMOs, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. And now we're not even using hybrid corn. We're planting open pollinated, going back to the old stuff. The newer seed has been bred not to have any of the defense systems left in it. I mean, every time you add yield, you have to shut something off. Maybe it's coincidence that they're shutting off some of the defense mechanisms of the plant. Maybe it's not. They are selling the answer. So we're going back to open pollinated corns. This is some cowpeas growing with it. There's some okra in here. We had squash planted out there. Several things we were harvesting. Unintended consequences. Honeybees, wildlife, our numbers are exploding. Songbirds, all those things are just exploding on our farm. So again, diversity. And when you think about a farm or your house or your life or your community, it's an ecosystem, large or small. What happens if we take this out of the system? What happens if we decide this is the pest and we spray or we till or we trap or we shoot and remove that from the system? What happens? Exactly. And then you call somebody to come in and exterminate. And then when you exterminate them, something else takes over and it just manipulates itself, like turns from snowflakes to a blizzard. You have to keep the ecosystem intact. Mother Nature will take care of your pest if you allow her to. So again, healthy soil grows healthy food. So how does that happen? We've been talking about this, Gail. Now, how to explain how your healthy soil is healthier food? Well, for you guys that have taken soil, you know soil is made up of silt, sand, and clay, right? That's what we were all taught in school. There's something else soil is made up of. What's that? Organic matter. Yeah, but no. Mineral. Soil is 85% mineral. Silt, sand, and clay is a very small part of it. So if my soil is 85% mineral, that's all bunk you just showed. How can my orange not have any vitamin A or vitamin C or magnesium in it if soil is 85% mineral? I'll still have soil. How does that mineral get into the plant? Anybody? What's that? The fungi. Absolutely. Our muscular mycorrhizal fungi is the messenger, or the trader, or the drug dealer, if you want to call that, on the corner. Plant has sugar, mycorrhiza needs sugar. So they make a little deal. The plant needs magnesium, manganese, and some copper, and the fungi opens up his coat, and he's got a little this and a little that, and he trades for the sugar. That's how you get the mineral into the plant. What does fungi not like? Disturbance, mechanical or chemical. Now, they will survive quite a bit, but just pretend you guys all live in a house, right? Probably. Apartment, a building with a roof. If I come through every spring with a wrecking ball and I hit your house, maybe I destroy the house, maybe I just take out the corner or take off the roof. Maybe the ball hits you, maybe it doesn't. So if you live, you've now got a roof to fix. How much are you caring about making trades with plants? You're trying to protect your family. So we kill most of them, but not all of them die. But when we continue to till, we continue to spray, we're damaging them to the point they're not doing their jobs anymore. They're not getting the nutrients into the plants. So photosynthesis, getting the sugars down through the plant turning sunlight into sugar, feeding the mycorrhizal fungi, putting nutrient density into the plant, and the plant needs to go full term so that it can do its whole thing in the soil instead of on a shelf somewhere or in a cooler. Better speed up. We got 5 minutes? Okay. So what happens when sunlight hits bare soil? It actually causes a biochemical reaction and heats the soil, which in turn heats the atmosphere. But when sunlight hits a leaf, it's a cooling reaction. It does just the opposite. That's why we want diversity. We want more things growing. Instead of bare ground between our rows, we need things growing. So what can diversity do for you? This is a smooth brome cool season pasture near our house. We took over management of it last year. We did not put on any fertilizer. We grazed the cows through it real fast in the fall and then come back last spring to graze. This was a cow pie from the fall before. So we need to maximize sunlight harvest. Oops, I was supposed to have another slide in there. I had a picture of a cool season pasture a mile down the road that's full of diversity. The grass, the legumes, the forbs were all waist high. We haven't put fertilizer on it for 5 or 6 years. This is sunflowers planted in a 60-way mix. Corn growing with white clover. I mean, you're just no end to the way you guys can do this, of finding things to put in with your crops. This is milo growing with a companion. The big problem in Kansas now is a sugarcane aphid. My neighbors are spraying their fields 2 or 3 times with insecticide to take out the aphid. I'm letting the lady beetles do it. Understanding everyone's role. You need to do research on what all these crops bring to you. There's advantages and disadvantages, what they all bring. And insects, they all have an important part in this. So again, we need to work with nature. Here actually, that's the same field I was going to show you with the polyculture pasture, cool season, no fertilizer applied, picture taken the same day as the brome with the cow pie. So work with nature, because if you don't, Mother Nature always wins. Modern research divides nature into tiny pieces and conducts tests that conform neither with natural law nor with practical experience. The results are arranged for the convenience of research, not according to the needs of the farmer. When a university researcher walks out into this field, what does he see as the problem? Weeds. We have to get rid of the competition. When Mother Nature looks at this field, what does she see as the problem? Bare soil. And she's going to cover it as fast as she can. And so we find more chemicals to use, and what does she do to them? Makes them resistant to the chemical. The answer isn't in the jug. The answer is cover the soil. The single largest limiting factor, human mind. It's us. We do mob grazing, we talked about that. We turn cover crops into cash. Again, the chickens following the cattle. These are our meat chickens. These are the tractors we talked about. We have 50 meat birds per tractor, and it's moved daily. This is where they were yesterday, and this is where they're going tomorrow. Happy chickens, healthy chickens. We graze through the winter. So you got to do your own homework. I don't have the prescription for you, but with Google, everything's out there, right? It's just finding out what you want to do for her. The most important thing is to have fun. We abuse land because we regard it as a commodity belonging to us. When we see land as a community to which we belong, we may begin to use it with love and respect. Aldo Leopold. So I leave you today with this question. What will you leave to the next generation? Because for me, the next generation is already here. And the buck stops with me. Limitations: until you spread your wings, you'll have no idea how far you can walk. Thank you for your time. Here are some things I like. I'll get back to that in a minute. Oh, I thought I had my field school. We have a field school August 17th and 18th this year. You can find us on Facebook at GNL Whole Food. Jen has my email address if you want to contact me. This year's speaker at my field school will be Ray Archuleta, who is the soil health leader through NRCS that has helped start this movement. Walt Davis, who's a holistic rancher from Oklahoma that started holistic management before anybody knew what the term meant. And also Dr. Don Huber, who's done much of the research on glyphosate. So with that, do we have time for questions?
Yes, but let's give Gail a round of applause. 5 minutes for questions here.
I think we had.
That was a fantastic presentation, first of all.
Thank you.
And I've been commissioner with the Soil and Water Districts in Blackhawk County. We were just informed this week that on highly erodible soil, the limit has been 5 tons per acre of soil loss. It has just been increased to 10 tons. Just below the
We're going the wrong way.
I know, right?
It should be 0.
It should be 0.
What she's talking about, that is what FSA and RMA allow as allowable soil erosion so that you can collect your welfare check. So that is part of the problem of why this is being slow to adapt. Yes?
I think one of the challenges in the situation that our society is in is moving from cheap food, commodity food, being able to raise have a sustainable food system where, the producer is getting a fair price for their food and doesn't need government subsidies. How do we make that transition? It's so complex, I know, but what are your...
Did everybody hear the question? Okay. Well, we've tried to go to Washington and change the way things are done. It's not going to work. The only way we're going to do this, and if you guys all go home and tell your neighbors and your parents, and they tell their neighbors and their parents, and when we go to Washington, we need to go with a few million people. That's the only way we're going to make change to any of the government programs. And not just in industrial ag, the organic labeling system. I mean, guys, I could see a complete collapse in the organic label in the next year or two. I mean, it just looks like a mess right now. And it's run by the USDA. I mean, once USDA got involved in organic, it became just as big a mess as industrial farming did. Now, I feel really bad for my customers and for you people in here today that are buying organic food or going to the farmer's market or wherever, because you're still having to pay for the subsidies with your tax dollars and you're having to pay twice as much for your food. That's not right. So to get that fixed, that's why we got to get everybody on board, because we can't make change in Washington with this small group. It's a great group, but it's just not big enough and they're not going to listen until we go with millions and millions of people. And it's interesting, when we first started looking at getting out of the commodity business, and I can tell you how difficult this has been for me right here. I spent my whole life going to the elevator and taking $2 a bushel for my corn and taking the check and going home. And I can't hardly look at my customers in the eye, or I could in the beginning, and say, well, we sell our beef for $7.50 a pound for a hamburger. I didn't even feel right, because you could buy it in the store for $1.50. You know, it's really difficult. But it's interesting, a couple of years ago when the Farm Bill was expired and, you know, Congress, they can't agree on anything. They were 2 or 3 years late getting a new Farm Bill passed. And it actually got to the point that by some law, if they didn't pass a new one, it was going to revert back to, I think, the original Farm Bill in 1948 when it was written. And there was stories on the news that if that happened, the price of milk in the grocery store was going to go to $7.50 a gallon. It's exactly what we were paying for whole milk at the local dairy where we were buying it. Now, if that's what the cost of production with milk was, because that's obviously what the dairies were going to charge, that was their true cost of production, was $7.50 a gallon to make a profit. That $7.50 a gallon milk that Lynette and I are buying off of a grass-based organic dairy that's free-range cows and whole milk isn't worth $7.50 a gallon. It's worth about $20 a gallon. So he's selling his stuff way too cheap. Another part of that is you. Again, we talked about eating seasonally. I mean, we've got to start putting a focus on food, on our social habits. Food has to become an event again, like it used to be back in the day. You know, if you're buying nutrient-dense food, since we started drinking, I'm a milkaholic, by the way. It's not just beer that I like. I love milk. I was drinking 5 to 7 glasses a day in the summer. It wasn't hard. We have now since we started drinking raw milk, and it's $7.50 a gallon. I'm like, well, let's get a couple of gallons. I can't afford that. Pretty soon I'm drinking 2 glasses a day, maybe 3. Lynette bought a cow. We got a cow in a co-op with another family. Today, I might drink a glass of milk every 2 or 3 months, 4 months, maybe. Don't need it anymore, I guess. I don't have that thirst. You know, when you start eating, I don't eat as much meat as I used to. I eat a lamb chop. You know, I'm a pretty big guy. I eat a couple of lamb chops. I'm stuffed. I used to eat a ribeye, you know. I know I'm getting older, and part of that's age, but when you're eating nutrient-dense food, you're not as hungry, so you're not spending as much there either. So there's many things we can do, but the big thing for you guys is next time you're buying food, ask the grocer. Next time you're at a restaurant, ask the waiter. Where did this steak come from? Where did this salad come from? How was it grown? How was it raised? And if they can't answer you, at some point we've got to make a scene and say, well, then I'm not interested. And that's tough to do, but we're going to have to start asking very hard questions. And when you go to the farmer's market, it's almost as bad, guys. You don't just go to the farmer's market thinking you're going to buy an organic tomato. We see people at the farmer's market, they're buying, you see them at the grocery store 10 minutes before the market opens buying their tomatoes. If you see perfect tomatoes at the farmer's market, don't buy them. They aren't worth anything. Ask the guy questions, the gal, ask the farmer. And if they don't answer the questions the way you want, move on. Anybody else? Are we out of time?
We're out of time here,
Okay.
but